What's up guys, welcome back to another upSchool video. Today we're going to be learning about the virus versus the cell. How has the coronavirus been able to enter our body, and how is it infecting other cells, and how do vaccines work? We're going to be learning everything from the history of a virus to how the viruses are infecting the cells and about vaccines. So this video is everything you want to know about coronavirus and its interaction with the environment and the world. What are you going to learn in this video? What is a virus? How are viruses formed? How do viruses enter the body? How does virus enter the cell? And how do vaccines work? So first of all, what is a virus? So a virus is not an animal, it's not a plant, and it's not a cell. A virus has its own classification in the animal kingdom. You see, viruses are just strands of genetic material and proteins. That's it. For example, coronavirus and bacteriophage are examples of viruses. They only contain genetic material and protein. In the case of the coronavirus, the spikes you see contain protein. So it's just genetic material and proteins. So it cannot survive on its own because it does not have the mechanism like the nucleus or the cell membrane to live and survive and multiply and reproduce. That's why outside of a host's body, cells are incapable of living. So cells are non-living outside of the body because they have no cell membrane, no cytoplasm. So viruses are the mid-classification between non-living and living. They're sometimes non-living and they're sometimes living. Viruses are parasites, and parasites, as you know, is animals that live off of another animal, or they steal the mechanism of another body to reproduce on its own. Viruses enter into the host's body, which in the case of coronavirus is a human body, and uses the human cell mechanism to reproduce. How are viruses formed? We can't really say how viruses are formed because since they're in the cross between non-living and living, who knows? Viruses could have been alive since the beginning of time. We don't know how exactly viruses are formed because they're incapable of reproducing. But if they're able to enter a host's body, they do multiply and reproduce. But some say that viruses are formed from the genetic material of some animals. In the case of coronavirus, some say that the virus was formed from the genetic material that was left off from a bat. How do viruses enter the body? Coronavirus is able to enter the human body into three paths: the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, most through the mouth. How does virus enter the cell? Cell is the structural and functional unit of life. So whenever the virus enters the body through the mouth, first it has to go into the cell so that it can use the cell's mechanism to reproduce. And after infecting the cell, it'll infect the entire organ and the entire body. So viruses can't just enter the cell like that because cells are guarded membrane. A cell membrane is what's known as a semi-permeable membrane, which means it allows some materials like oxygen but does not allow some other materials like viruses. So this semi-permeable membrane is present because the cell membrane has pores, and these pores only allow the friendly materials like oxygen but won't allow foreign materials like COVID-19. So usually, since the coronavirus wants to enter the cell, it disguises itself as oxygen and tries to enter into the cell. But this doesn't work out. As soon as the virus enters the cell gets alerted and it realizes that an intruder has entered the cell. When that happens, the nucleus takes action. The nucleus is the control unit of the cell. It's the leader of the cell and it controls all the activities, and it contains DNA, which is the genetic material. This DNA has many codes, and there is one specific code in our DNA that tells our body how to make antibodies. Antibodies are proteins that are used to kill viruses. The nucleus takes this code of DNA of how to make the antibodies to the ribosome. Now the ribosome are the tiny cell organelles present in the endoplasmic reticulum. The ribosomes are used to make the antibodies. Once the ribosome receives the code on how to make the antibodies, the ribosome turns proteins into antibodies. The antibodies then go to the Golgi apparatus. The Golgi apparatus is one of the cell organelles that's used for packaging, storage, and modification of materials. This is because the antibodies need to be packed and stored in order to fight against the virus. After they're packed and stored, the antibodies go and they kill the virus. Sometimes there are remaining bits and leftover pieces after the antibodies destroy the viruses. This is when the lysosomes take place. The lysosomes are the digestive system of the cell. They go and they clean up the waste materials and they digest it using powerful digestive enzymes. All of this takes place within the cells. But this all requires energy for the cell to be able to make proteins and to make antibodies and to digest the waste materials. Where do cells get the energy to fight against the coronavirus? Well, they get that through the mitochondria. The mitochondria is also known as the powerhouse of the cell, and it provides energy through a chemical energy called ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate. Sometimes the virus might be too powerful, so even when the antibodies try to attack it, they won't work. In this case, the virus will take control of the entire cell. They'll use the cell mechanism to multiply and reproduce. They'll infect the entire organs and they'll take control of the entire host body, and they might even kill the host body. This is leading to coronavirus deaths, as you've heard. In this case, we must use vaccines. How do vaccines work? The vaccine may just look like a bottle and a syringe, but there's more to it. What's inside this bottle? And how is the vaccine capable of making your body immune towards the virus? The vaccine contains antibodies, and these antibodies are disguised to look like coronavirus particles, but they're not really coronavirus particles. Whenever these fake coronavirus particles, which are antibodies disguised as them, interact with the real coronavirus, they come over and they sneakily destroy them. And so the body remembers how to fight against these viruses, so the next time a virus enters, the body will be immune to it. So that's how the vaccines work. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys understood how viruses are formed, what are viruses, how are they able to enter the body, processes that take place when a virus enters our body, and how vaccines work to fight against the virus. Thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned for more upSchool videos.